All in Sports Network. We love sports.
All right, we have breaking news from the Texas Longhorn football program. As you've probably heard by now, Jonte Cook, former five-star wide receiver from DeSoto, has mutually parted ways with the Texas Longhorn football program. In the words of Steve Sarkisian, he was dismissed from the program. And really, it came down to the fact of I'm sure there was a locker room issue, whatever cancerous, attitude or vibe that he was giving off from a lack of playing time, I'm sure was either affecting just the wide receiver group, the offensive group, the quarterback group, maybe the coaching staff, maybe just putting it in an awkward situation where you obviously have friends in the locker room and guys on that side hearing it from him. He's venting. It spills over to the coaches. I'm sure it's been going on for a couple of weeks now. We obviously don't know those exact details. However, it really comes down to Jonte has played 11 snaps since his drop against Mississippi State in the first half of the game. And that's going to be really his lasting memory from the Texas Longhorn football program, as he will inevitably enter the transfer portal following this football season. I'm sure as a former five-star, he will get picked up pretty quickly, probably to a very good program. Likely will succeed. Will that remains to be seen. But Jake, what are your initial thoughts? Any other news that I didn't touch on that we need to run through?
Steve Sarkisian said it was a mutual parting of ways. A lot of the insider websites reported it as a dismissal, which are kind of two separate things. And there is a little drama on social media around this I want to cover, but like you mentioned, you just look at his snap counts, and I'm just going to run it down by a per game basis. Colorado State, he had 30, 19 against Michigan, 15 against UTSA, 39 against Monroe, 7 Mississippi State, 4 Oklahoma, and then he did not get any in Georgia or Vanderbilt. And it's just a matter of fact of Texas is loaded at wide receiver. If you aren't going to trust the system and wait your turn, if you are not good enough, and it's not a case of he's clearly should be out there. He got beat out by Orion Wingo in camp. He got beat out by DeAndre Moore, who was a lower recruit. And sometimes, especially if you look at bust percentages by position, and I'm not saying he's a bust now, but it's just far as his career at Texas is, because he's gone a year and a half in. Wide receiver has the highest bust percentage of any recruited position in college football. But to kind of cover the social media drama, because it is there, he retweeted probably the dumbest account on X. It's a Oklahoma fan account that has changed his account 5 times this year because he was a Jackson Arnold fan account that screamed Heisman all offseason, then gave up on him, became a Michael Hawkins fan account, then gave up on Michael Hawkins, became just a he had like a account that was just like ... account, and then now he's back to Jackson Arnold because he lit up Maine. And he had tweeted, I'm just going to read it. It's crazy how Texas didn't want this man to succeed. They burned his red shirt in year 1 when they didn't need to. Year 2, instead of letting him get more playing time, they grabbed 3 wide receivers in the portal and buried him on the depth chart. That's called bringing in competitive competition. And he did not beat that competitive competition. I know OU may not be familiar with that term anymore of competitive competition because they're just sitting there bitching about not having their top 4 or 5 receivers when Jonte Cook is the 6th receiver on Texas. And even if they were healthy at the receiver position, he'd probably be their best receiver. Definitely talent wise, he would be. Yeah. So Jonte Cook did retweet that. Other than that, he's been pretty quiet. He did comment on the Instagram post from On3 reporting this, that the bounce back is going to be crazy. And I hope he bounces back. I hope he succeeds wherever he goes to. And that's pretty much been the sentiment for most Texas fans. Of course, some fans are going to go, well, all he does is drop the ball. And you're basing that off of one play. That we saw flashes from him, but at the end of the day, he could have been a bigger part of the offense last year, but he was going to have to beat out 2 5-stars coming in. Wingo and Moore were still going to be ahead of him. Golden could be back. He would be ahead of him. And so I think he was looking at it, realizing my snaps are dwindling. And part of that I also think was because of blocking. And then supposedly there was locker room stuff. We haven't heard specifics on that, but you can probably guess. And then he's probably looking at it, realizing even next year, he was probably going to be 5th on the depth chart unless he beat guys out. And when you're a 5-star and you come in, you don't think you should have to beat people out. Sometimes, not all of them have that, but you're going to get ones that are like that.
Yeah. And again, Jake, this is, to me, there's a question I think that has been kind of circulating. I want to get your take on it. I'm going to go ahead and give mine on whether or not this is a good look for the program of losing a 5-star talent kind of in this heat wave of Texas football in terms of going to the playoffs last year, the recruiting classes, the player development from Sark, and whether or not this is a good look for the program, or if Sark is losing the locker room or any type of extracurricular, nuances in terms of culture within the Texas Longhorn program. I'm going to go out and say that losing a 5-star recruit in the middle of your season is never a great look. You never want that to happen. You hope it never has to come to that. This is not to me, this is not a Sarkisian losing a locker room sort of a thing. I think this is a Jonte Cook was losing snaps. He wasn't earning, and he kind of realized he saw that he wasn't going to make that progression this season. And I'm sure he didn't respond the best way. He's probably been the best player wherever he's gone. He probably has a large enough ego, I would think, to not feel like he has to earn his job whenever promises were made, or conversations, discussions were made during his recruitment to get him to Texas, but he just didn't develop and into the player that DeAndre Moore is, or where these guys are currently within the offense, whether that be learning the playbook or, blocking. We've mentioned it before with the position coach, no block, no rock. And if that's not what he's doing, then he's not going to get playing time. And I don't think he mentally was strong enough to handle that and deal with that and compete at that level. And he said, all right, well, if I'm not going to get it, I think this is more of a personal thing with Jonte Cook, more so than it is a culture problem within the program. It's not a great look, no, but I don't think this is going to be some like detrimental turn to the Texas Longhorn team this season. If anything, I think it's going to get a distraction out of the way and out a clamoring ear or mouth into the ears of the wide receiver group, into the offensive group, and getting that kind of negativity out of the locker room, so they can actually start focusing on what they need to do while watching film or whatever that is. That's how I personally take it.
Yeah, how I take it, and I'm not even going to dive very far into the culture issue. I'll leave that for stupid Aggie and Sooner fans on Twitter to talk about, because that's where it starts and ends. It's just other teams who say that crap. Any Longhorn fan that's saying that's not in tune with the program, they don't know what's going on, and they're just one of those people who sits there and yells "Fire Sark" on Twitter when they don't score a touchdown on every single possession. And I'm not worried at all about the culture of this program. This happens to every single program, especially in the modern era of football. And I guarantee you, Sarkisian would not be dismissing a player in the middle of the season if he thought that it was going to be an issue for the locker room and an issue for the leadership group at the team, or cause another player to leave. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I guarantee you the players in there understand why this decision was made. The team seems to be very close-knit. And it's just not even remotely a concern for me. Guess what? When this season ends, even if Texas wins a national title, there's going to be guys that transfer out. There's going to be guys that you don't want to transfer out, just like last year, just like the year before, just like happens to Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. It happened. Do you think they wanted to lose Adonai Mitchell to Texas?
Right.
No, they didn't.
Isaiah Bond?
Yes, exactly. And that was a coaching change, a little different, but still, it doesn't matter. It happens to every single team. So if you're freaking out about this, I think you're too much in the weeds of social media where you just see a lot of nothing but negativity. At the end of the day, this is a nothing burger. It's something that's really not that big of a surprise if you've been paying close attention. And if you listen to other Longhorn podcasts that have insiders, that have sources in the program. In the fall camp, there was talk about how Jonte Cook had been disappointing. He was not beating out DeAndre Moore. He was not beating out Silas Bolden. He was not beating out all these guys that you're seeing get way more playing time than him. And when you have a 5-star that's in his second year in the program and he's not getting playing time, it's not a shocker when he leaves. The only surprising thing is it's mid-season. But like you said, if he's causing any locker room problems, it's not worth it.
No. And Jake, there was writings on the wall, like you mentioned. When Isaiah Bond goes down and a Jonte Cook doesn't step up and is the replacement, or at least not even the replacement for Isaiah Bond, but the next man up, a Ryan Wingo per se, and then Jonte Cooks isn't taking Wingo's PT and his snaps, that tells you something, especially against a team like Vanderbilt. And you can talk about all you want, but the writing was on the wall that he got 0 playing time when Isaiah Bond went out and was out for a game. That's your best wide receiver, and a 5-star second-year guy within the program doesn't even step on the field not one time. That's not, hey, I'm not capable of playing. This is, you're detached from the team. You're not bought in. We're not allowing that to be part of the program.
And the last thing I'll say is Sarkisian, it was either after the OU or the Georgia game, said something about we need to get, he said one other name, and then he said Cook going. And when Sarkisian points out a player in a press conference, it is either to challenge that player or it is because that player is showing flashes and they're going to see the field and get a chance to break out. I think he challenged Jonte Cook, and considering he's leaving just about 2 weeks after Sarkisian said that, that tells me he didn't exactly accept that challenge well, and he definitely didn't meet the expectation that Sarkisian had when giving that challenge, and that's why you see this happen today.
And look, there are other programs within the same conference, outside of the conference, that could desperately use a guy with the talent and the skill set of Jonte Cook on their program, and he would be their number one. Oklahoma being one of them, A&M being one of them, South Carolina being one of them, Florida being one of them. This guy is going to have plenty of options in the portal. Trust me, we're probably going to see him face off against Texas, to be completely honest with you.
Well, in the SEC, if you transfer within the SEC, you have to sit a year, is my understanding. So more than likely, he's going to end up at, if he wants to stay in state, a TCU, a Baylor, an SMU, something like that, which again, I hope that he succeeds wherever he goes. But I'm just trying to, when I say negative things about it, it's more of just trying to get it through fans' heads that are maybe going, what happened here? Of there was writing on the wall. This isn't that big of a surprise. You're not a 5-star anymore. Once you're in your second year in the program, you're a college football player at that point, and you're either performing or you're not.
I think that's a perfect way to end this thing, Jake. Well, that is going to do it. We didn't want to spend too much time, but this is breaking news. We thought we should release a video, our thoughts on it. It's definitely worth the conversation. It's not going to be in our Friday's episode, but stay tuned for our Friday's episode. Also, watch today's episode as well, as we broke down the college football playoff rankings, their initial rankings, and what the standings would look like 1 through 12. And then tomorrow's episode will be our prediction episode. So stay tuned. Get your alerts on. Like, share, subscribe. This is All in Horns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. I'm Tanner Carlson. That was Jake Jimerson. He just logged off. And for everybody out there, welcome.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.